Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Their cry for help was answered by the most dangerous species in existence. The Death Worlder's lips curled into a faint smile. Interesting, he muttered, his voice deep and commanding. Prepare the fleet. Let's see who dares to call for help in our territory. His soldiers saluted, their movements sharp and disciplined. The ships began to hum as their engines powered up, the darkness around them vibrating with power. The Death Worlder's eyes gleamed with curiosity. He wondered what he would find on Sia, a trap, a test, or perhaps a challenge. Whatever it was, he was ready, and the galaxy was about to learn why Death Worlders were feared above all. The fleet moved forward, disappearing into the darkness of space, heading towards the tiny world that had dared to call for help. Cilia's cry for help was heard, but the ones who heard it were not saviors. They were the galaxy's deadliest beings, and they were coming. The skies above Assyria were still burning, clouds of smoke rising from the destroyed city. The Karens marched through the ruins, their metallic boots crushing debris underfoot. Their red eyes scanned the area, searching for any survivors to capture or eliminate. Elder Mayan and Lyra hid in the shadows of a collapsed building, their hearts pounding as they watched the invaders. Mayan's hands trembled as he held Lyra close, trying to keep her silent. One wrong move, one sound, and they would be discovered. Above them, the Karen warships hovered like vultures, their weapons still glowing hot from the attack. The sky was darkened by their sheer number, blocking out the sun. The once beautiful city was now a battlefield, and hope seemed like a distant memory. But then a strange sound echoed across the sky, a low hum, deep and powerful, vibrating through the ground. The Karens looked up, their red eyes narrowing in suspicion. From the edge of the atmosphere, massive shadows appeared, descending with terrifying speed. They were unlike any ships that Silians or Karens had ever seen, dark, jagged, and menacing. Their surfaces were covered in scars, showing signs of ancient battles. The air grew heavy, charged with a strange energy that made the ground tremble. Mayan's eyes widened as he realized these were not the ships of the Galactic Union. These were something else, something far more dangerous. The Karens shouted commands, their war machines turning to face the new arrivals. Beams of energy fired into the sky, but they didn't even scratch the approaching ships. The Death Worlder fleet moved with precision, weaving through the attacks effortlessly. One of the Karen commanders growled in frustration. Who are they? Which empire do they belong to? His second in command shook his head, fear flickering in his red eyes. I don't know, sir. Our databases have no records of such ships. The first ship landed with a thunderous crash, its massive legs digging into the ground. The impact shook the entire city, sending shock waves through the ruins. The Karens stumbled, struggling to keep their balance. The ship's hull opened slowly, steam hissing as the doors parted. A ramp extended, touching the ground with a metallic thud. For a moment, there was only silence. Even the Karens held their breath, their weapons aimed at the opening. Then they appeared, tall figures clad in dark armor that gleamed under the smoky sky. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing visors, and their movements were precise and powerful. They walked with a calm confidence, unbothered by the Karen's weapons pointed at them. The Karen commander's hand shook as he activated his communicator. All units open fire, don't let them advance. A barrage of energy beams shot towards the Death Worlders, but in a flash, they moved faster than anything the Karens had ever seen. They dodged the attacks with ease, their bodies a blur of motion. One Death Worlder raised his arm, and a pulse of energy exploded from his gauntlet, disintegrating an entire squad of Karens in seconds. Another leaped into the air, his blade slicing through enemy machines like paper. The Silians watched in awe and horror as the Death Worlders tore through the Karen army with terrifying efficiency. Their strength was unmatched, their speed unbelievable. They fought like ancient warriors, brutal and unstoppable. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Who are they? Mayan's voice trembled. I don't know, but they're not from the Galactic Union. They're something else, something far more dangerous. The Death Worlders advanced, their numbers growing as more ships landed. The Karens began to retreat, their confidence shattered. They had never faced an enemy like this before, one that didn't hesitate, didn't fear, and didn't spare anyone. The Karen commander stumbled back, his red eyes wide with panic. Retreat! We can't fight them! His troops obeyed, fleeing towards their remaining ships, but the Death Worlders were relentless. They pursued the Karens, cutting down anyone who tried to escape. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy, their armor deflecting all attacks. The city shook as the Karen warships tried to lift off, only to be shot down by the Death Worlders' anti-air cannons. Explosions filled the sky, raining debris over the ruins. The Karen fleet was destroyed in minutes, their forces completely annihilated. Elder Mayan and Lyra watched in stunned silence as the last of the Karens fell. The battle was over, but the nightmare was far from ending. The Death Worlders stood amidst the destruction, their glowing visors turning towards the surviving Cillians. They moved forward, their footsteps heavy and echoing through the broken streets. Mayan's heart sank. He realized that while the Karens were defeated, they were now at the mercy of a new power, one that was far more terrifying. Lyra's voice shook. "They saved us, but why do I feel more afraid than before?" Mayan didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the Death Worlders, watching them with a mix of fear and awe. They had answered the cry for help, but were they saviors or conquerors? The streets of Delara were silent now, filled only with the smoke of battle and the shadows of the towering Death Worlders. Elder Mayan's heart raced as he watched them move through the ruins, their glowing visors scanning every corner. They didn't speak, didn't show any emotion. They were like ghosts, cold and unstoppable. Lyra clung to Mayan's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Grandfather, what are they?" Mayan shook his head, his voice trembling. "I don't know, child, but they are more powerful than anything I've ever seen." Suddenly, one of the Death Worlders turned its head, its visor locking onto their hiding spot. Mayan's breath caught in his throat. He pulled Lyra back, pressing his body against the crumbling wall, but it was too late. The Death Worlder had seen them. The towering figure approached, its footsteps heavy and precise. The ground trembled with each step, and Mayan felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They were trapped. The Death Worlder stood before them, his shadow falling over Mayan and Lyra. He reached up, his fingers moving with mechanical precision, and removed his helmet. Mayan's eyes widened in shock. Underneath the dark armor was a face like his own, eyes, nose, mouth, all unmistakably humanoid, but there was something fierce about his gaze, something ancient and powerful. The Death Worlder spoke, his voice deep and commanding. "You are Cillians, survivors of this attack." Mayan's mouth went dry. He struggled to find his voice. Yes, we are the last of our people. The Karens, they destroyed everything." The Death Worlder's eyes narrowed. He looked at the ruins around him, his expression cold and unreadable. "We received your SOS. Your plea for help reached us, and we responded." Lyra's eyes sparkled with hope. You saved us." The Death Worlder looked down at her, his gaze softening just a little. "We do not save, we eliminate threats." His voice was firm, unyielding. "The Karens were a threat, so we destroyed them." Mayan felt a chill run down his spine. There was no mercy in this warrior's eyes, no compassion, only duty and power. He realized then that these beings were not like the Galactic Union's peacekeepers. They were something far more dangerous. Who are you?" Mayan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Death Worlder's gaze grew colder. "We are the descendants of Earth. We are the Death Worlders." Mayan's heart skipped a beat. He had heard of them before, stories whispered by travelers, legends of beings from a cursed planet, a world so harsh, so deadly that only the strongest could survive. A world called Earth. "But the Death Worlders are myths, ancient tales," Mayan stammered. "They can't be real." The warrior's eyes gleamed with a cold light. "We are very real, Elder, and we have watched this galaxy for a long time, waiting, observing, until the time was right to act." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes full of wonder. "You came to help us. You defeated the Karens. Does that mean you're our allies?" The Death Worlder's expression didn't change. "Allies? No, we do not involve ourselves in the politics of the weak. We came because your SOS signaled a threat. We neutralized that threat, nothing more." Mayan's heart sank. They were not saviors, they were hunters, predators who destroyed anything that threatened their domain. He looked into the warrior's eyes and saw the truth. They were protectors of their own kind, nothing more. "What will you do now?" Mayan asked, his voice trembling. The Death Worlder looked at the ruins, his eyes calculating. "We will leave. Your world is safe for now, but if another threat arises, we will return. And if you become a threat, we will destroy you as well." Lyra's face turned pale. "But we are not a threat, we're just surviving." The warrior's gaze softened, just for a moment. "Then survive, and do not summon us again unless you are prepared to face the consequences." With that, he turned away, his armor gleaming under the darkened sky. The other Death Worlders followed him, their movements perfectly synchronized. They returned to their ships, their presence as silent as shadows. Mayan watched as the colossal vessels lifted off, disappearing into the sky. The hum of their engines echoed through the ruins, a haunting reminder of the power they wielded. As the last ship vanished, Lyra looked up at her grandfather, her eyes full of fear and confusion. "Grandfather, were they heroes or monsters?" News of the Charon's destruction spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Every council chamber buzzed with whispers, every diplomat's face was pale with fear. The Charons had been one of the most feared warlords in the galaxy, yet they were wiped out in mere moments. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Union, leaders from every star system gathered. The air was thick with tension, their voices hushed, their faces grim. They had all seen the footage, the dark ships appearing out of nowhere, the way they moved with deadly precision, and the sheer power they unleashed. It was like nothing they had ever seen before. Chancellor Velier stood at the center, his robes flowing as he raised his hands for silence. This cannot be possible. Who could destroy the Charons so easily?" His voice trembled, betraying his fear. A hologram flickered to life in the middle of the chamber, displaying the battle scene. The alien council members flinched as they watched the Death Worlder ships tear through the Charon armada without hesitation, without mercy. Ambassador Grill, his scales shimmering with anxiety, spoke up. "These beings, they are like shadows. They appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Our sensors couldn't track them. Our communications were jammed. It was as if they were ghosts." Murmurs filled the hall, fears spreading like wildfire. Ghosts, impossible. And yet the footage didn't lie. General Tor, his tusks gleaming under the chamber lights, spoke in frustration. "We must find out who they are. No fleet has that kind of power, that kind of precision. They are a threat to us all." Counselor Lyra's eyes were wide with terror. "There are rumors, whispers from the survivors on Cilia. They say the beings call themselves Death Worlders." A gasp ran through the chamber. The word sent chills down everyone's spine. Death Worlders, legends told of a cursed race from a violent world, a place where only the strongest could survive, a world called Earth. Chancellor Velier's voice was barely above a whisper. "Earth, that primitive rock on the edge of the galaxy? Impossible. They were nothing more than savages, barely capable of space travel. They were weak." Ambassador Grill shook his head, his eyes wide with fear. "But the rumors say they've been watching, waiting, hidden in the shadows, and now they've returned." The chamber fell silent, the air heavy with dread. If the Death Worlders were real, if they truly possessed such power, then no one in the galaxy was safe. General Tor slammed his fist onto the table, his voice echoing through the hall. "We must prepare. If they are truly Death Worlders, then they are the greatest threat we have ever faced. We cannot let them destroy us like they did the Charons." Chancellor Velier's face turned pale. "But how? How do we fight beings who can appear and disappear at will, beings who can destroy entire fleets without warning?" No one had an answer. The fear was palpable, hanging in the air like a shadow. They were the rulers of the galaxy, the most powerful beings in existence, yet they were powerless against these ghosts from a forgotten world. As the council members argued and shouted, Counselor Lyra sat in silence, her heart pounding. She remembered the stories her grandmother told her, old tales of a world where gravity was heavy, where beasts roamed the land, where the very air was a challenge to breathe. A world that forged warriors unlike any other. "Earth," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They come from Earth." The room fell silent, every eye turning to her. Chancellor Velier's face twisted in anger. "Nonsense! Earth is a myth, a primitive world that could never—" "They survived," Lyra interrupted, her voice growing stronger. They survived on that cursed world and they became stronger because of it. The legends were true. They are Death Worlders and they have returned. A chill ran through the room. The truth was undeniable. The Death Worlders were real and they were powerful beyond imagination. Chancellor Velier's hands trembled as he gripped the podium. We must stop them before they destroy us all. But deep down, he knew the truth. They had awakened a power they could not control. The galaxy had called for help and the deadliest beings had answered. The Galactic Union was in chaos. Fear spread through every star system as news of the Death Worlders continued to grow. Stories of shadows that destroyed fleets, of ships that moved like phantoms, and of warriors who fought with unmatched ferocity filled every communication channel. In the war chamber of the Galactic Union, leaders and generals gathered around a massive holographic display. Planets blinked on the map, marking each system that had received the mysterious SOS signal. Each was now silent, wiped clean of any Karen presence. General Tor's fists were clenched, his tusks gleaming under the cold light. We cannot wait any longer. These Death Worlders are a threat to every race in this galaxy. We must strike first before they reach our home worlds. Admiral Silo, his metallic limbs whirring as he moved, nodded in agreement. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered. If we hesitate, they will annihilate us just as they did the Karens. Chancellor Velier's face was pale, his eyes shadowed with worry. He had never seen his generals so shaken. The Karens were feared throughout the galaxy, yet the Death Worlders had destroyed them without hesitation, without mercy. What chance did the Union have against such power? Ambassador Grill spoke up, his voice trembling. But we don't even know who they are. Where did they come from? Why did they answer the SOS? Are they here to conquer or to protect? Silence fell over the room. The question hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Were the Death Worlders enemies or something far more dangerous? General Tor growled, his eyes burning with anger. They are a threat, and we must treat them as such. We cannot afford to be weak. Chancellor Velier looked at the hologram, his hands trembling. But if they are the ones from the legends, if they are truly Death Worlders, his voice dropped to a whisper, how do we fight them? They are said to be unbeatable warriors, forged by the harshest world in the galaxy. The room grew colder, the shadows seeming to lengthen. Every race in the galaxy had heard the stories of Earth, the cursed world of monsters and madness, where only the strongest survived. Admiral Silo's voice cut through the silence. We must learn their weaknesses. There must be something that can stop them. Even Death Worlders are mortal. Counselor Lyra, her face pale and eyes wide, spoke up. There is an ancient archive hidden in the ruins of the first ones. It is said to hold knowledge of every race that ever existed, even the Death Worlders. General Tor's eyes lit up with hope. If it holds information about their kind, we may find a way to defeat them. Chancellor Velier nodded, his resolve hardening. Then we must retrieve it, send a team to the ruins. We will gather every fleet, every weapon we have. We will not wait for them to strike. We will bring the fight to them. Admiral Silo's metallic fingers tapped against the hologram, marking potential attack points. We must be strategic. Their ships are powerful, but they are few in number. If we hit them fast and hard, we might be able to overwhelm them. General Tor grinned, his tusks gleaming. Yes, we will show these Death Worlders that the Galactic Union does not bow to shadows. But Counselor Lyra looked away, her heart heavy with dread. She remembered the stories, the legends of warriors who defied death itself, who were born from a world of nightmares. Could they truly defeat such beings? As the generals plotted their attack, she whispered under her breath, "We may have awakened a force we cannot stop." The room was filled with the hum of strategy and battle plans, but beneath it all, a chilling fear lingered. The Galactic Union was preparing for war, but they were facing legends, monsters who had already proven their power. The Galactic Union's fleets moved swiftly, their warships cutting through the void of space with deadly precision. Led by General Tor and Admiral Silo, they traveled toward the coordinates provided by the ancient archive. It was there, hidden among the ruins of the first ones, that they hoped to find the key to defeating the Death Worlders. The flagship Dominator led the armada, its massive hull bristling with weapons powerful enough to destroy entire planets. Inside the command center, holographic maps flickered with data, showing the ruins and the surrounding sectors. General Tor's eyes were fixed on the display, his face hard with determination. "They are out there watching us," he growled. "Hiding in the shadows like the predators they are, but this time we are the hunters." Admiral Silo's metallic limbs gleamed under the cold lights as he activated the scanners. "No sign of them yet, but they are masters of stealth. We must be ready for anything." The fleet moved closer to the ruins, ancient structures floating eerily in space, their broken shapes casting long shadows. The air was tense, the soldiers on edge. They all knew the stories, the legends of the Death Worlders who could turn invisible, who struck without warning. Inside the ruins, the strike team searched for the archive. Captain Varric led the team, his eyes sharp and his weapon ready. The ancient halls were dark and cold, echoing with whispers from the past. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, their meaning long forgotten. Suddenly, his communication device crackled. "Captain Varric, do you read me? We found something. You need to see this." He hurried to the chamber, his heart pounding. As he entered, his eyes widened in shock. Before him stood a massive holographic projection of a world, a blue and green planet with swirling white clouds. "It's Earth," one of his team members whispered, their voice trembling. The hologram began to shift, showing images of creatures, humans fighting monsters, battling through storms, surviving in harsh landscapes. Each scene showed their strength, their resilience. They faced death again and again, yet they never gave up. Captain Varric felt a chill run down his spine. They were forged by this world, shaped by nightmares and chaos. The hologram changed again, showing human ships, massive, powerful, and deadly. They fought against alien fleets, tearing through enemies with terrifying efficiency. The Death Worlders were warriors, conquerors born from the deadliest world in the galaxy. Suddenly, the ground shook. Alarms blared as shadows moved in the darkness. The team's lights flickered, revealing figures standing silently at the edges of the room. "Contact, we got hostiles," one of the soldiers shouted, raising his weapon. But the shadows didn't attack. They stepped forward, revealing human faces, cold, emotionless, and terrifyingly calm. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, their armor sleek and advanced. Captain Varric's heart sank. These were Death Worlders. They had been waiting, watching them the entire time. One of the humans stepped forward, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You came searching for answers, and now you have found them, but knowledge comes with a price." Before anyone could react, the room exploded with motion. The Death Worlders moved faster than the eye could follow, their weapons flashing with deadly precision. The strike team fell one by one, unable to match their speed and strength. Captain Varric fought desperately, his weapon firing wildly, but the humans were unstoppable, their movements fluid and graceful, as if they were dancing through the chaos. He stumbled back, his body trembling with fear. What are you?" The leader looked at him, his face cold and merciless. "We are the children of Earth, the survivors of Hell." With a swift motion, the humans struck, and everything went dark. On the Dominator, the sensors went wild. Admiral Silo watched in horror as the ruins lit up with energy signatures. The Death Worlders were attacking. "Raise the shields, all ships prepare for battle," General Tor shouted, his voice echoing through the command center. The shadows moved among the stars, ships appearing out of nowhere, their designs sleek and terrifying. They fired without warning, their weapons tearing through the Union's fleet with devastating power. Admiral Silo's metallic limbs trembled as he watched his ships explode one by one. "They're monsters. How can they be so powerful?" General Tor's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "They are Death Worlders, and we have awakened their wrath." The Death Worlder fleet moved like ghosts, slipping through defenses, striking with perfect precision. They were not just soldiers, they were hunters, and the Galactic Union was their prey. The battlefield was a scene of chaos and destruction. The Galactic Union's mighty fleet, once the symbol of power and authority, was now shattered and burning. Explosions rippled through space as ships were torn apart by the relentless assault. The Death Worlders moved like shadows, their sleek ships dancing through the debris with terrifying precision. On the bridge of the Dominator, Admiral Silo's eyes were wide with horror. "We're being hunted," he whispered, his voice trembling. General Tor stood frozen, his face pale. His plans, his strategies, everything was useless. The Death Worlders anticipated every move, striking from angles no one could have predicted. The communications officer's voice cracked, panic seeping through. "Sir, we've lost contact with the 5th and 7th fleets. They're gone." How are they doing this?" Admiral Silo demanded, his mechanical limbs twitching with fear. "They appear out of nowhere. No warning, no signals. They're using stealth technology we can't detect." General Tor realized, his voice hollow. "They've been watching us this whole time, learning, adapting."